Moving on to topic two, let's bring it down a little bit. Let's talk about video games that have been disappointing. And you're probably like, Brett, what are you talking about? Normally you're positive, you want to talk about cool things. Damn right, but I got triggered recently on a stream just by a game I was really, really enjoying, really, really liking. And when it came to wrapping it up and finishing the story, wrestling references, it just really did not, and just kind of dropped the ball in every sense of the meaning. And really, I don't know how to explain it. I felt very empty. I almost didn't even know how to feel. Just like the amount of like shock, which sounds weird because not like anything bad happened, but just the shock value of, wow, that was really disappointing of an experience, or like there was no payoff. So that experience kind of made me want to dive into this and like think about other games that maybe, I don't know if made me feel that exact way, but made me feel similar in terms of like, yeah, that wasn't the most rewarding experience that I was hoping for, or something, or elements of it weren't the best. So let's talk first about the big elephant in the room, the one that kind of started this idea of a topic, but Fall of Porcupine. So, Fall of Porcupine, indie developed game, Critical Rabbit, I believe this developer. I believe this is their first game, and it's a German-based studio. The game overall, fantastic. Tells the story of Finley, little pigeon, who's moved to a new town of Porcupine, become a doctor there, and you're kind of going through his journey of learning the ups and downs of the hospital and medical work life while also building relationships with different friends and coworkers in the town, and learning about the city and learning of others' troubles, I guess you could say. Very good in terms of development of these characters and making you care about them. The art style is very cute. Everything is everybody's animals in this town. But very good design in their characters and beautiful landscapes that they have, and buildings and stuff that they've portrayed. And then gameplay wise, it's mainly like that, not life sim, but dialogue, not too many choices, but you kind of have that narrative story between characters. And then they also do fun mini games, whether it's the mini games for your doctor-patient stuff, whether it's taking their temperature, well, not taking their temperature, giving them medication, checking their heartbeat, diagnosing them with what their illness or problem is. Those doctor-focused mini games, or there's other mini games where you don't do them as often, but depending on the stories that you decide to delve into, whether it's oh crud, of course I'm forgetting characters now, but there's Mia, your other intern friend who was there and recently started, whether it's going with her to do a detective mystery for her acting troupe, or was it Larry? No, there was a ram, man, he was cool, and I'm already forgetting his name, I'm so sorry. But going with him to do a board game at the bar, or if he gets into a drunken fight, like doing that. They have different mini games throughout, and there's other ones that I didn't experience, and you can't experience them all, unfortunately, in a single playthrough, depending on your choices of who you want to hang out with. But I saw there's other ones, like there's a basketball one, which seems pretty cool. But there's fun gameplay moments throughout the story, and the story that they're telling is intriguing. There's a little bit of a mystery element with an accident that happened with your character. And then there's also a mystery element of like what's going on with the hospital. Some things look shady and things aren't maybe being kept up right in the hospital. And the story does a good job of explaining those. Like I said, the character development, you care about these characters and build a relationship with them. And we build tension, we build tension, we build tension. We get to the end and we do this big climactic like warding off the evil or trying to fend it off, and then you get to that and you've beaten it, and then there's no ending, no to little ending. where every conclusion, and not even every conclusion, but the conclusion you get is simply in the credits in little photos, like how some games do, like your endings for the character, like the side characters of like, oh, I wonder what happened. I'm just going to use Kingdom Hearts for example. I wonder what happened to Chip and Dale after our adventure happened, or what happened to Pluto, or what happened to Hercules, and like they show a little cutscene in like a frame as it passes of like, oh, they're rebuilding, or oh, they found this. Like, that's totally fine. Little nice little bow on like people you saw in your journey. You get that, but you get no conclusion for some of the bigger threads that are talked about this entire 7 to 8 hour journey. I mentioned and alluded to Finley's accident. You open this game, you start the game, and Finley has a nightmare about, I assume, a concussion he just got. And it happened in the hospital. He was trying to help out a patient and he got hit in the head. And it's this whole mystery where they even allude back to it during the game, as you should, of like, what's happened that night? Oh, we got to figure it out. Was somebody else there? Are they trying to sabotage me? Blah, blah, blah. And you never get a full answer for that. You get this build of there's some shenanigans in the hospital. There was like, I don't know if money laundering was exactly what happened, but the guy in charge of the hospital wasn't putting the money back to keep up the hospital, so it was kind of falling apart, and he was blackmailing his head doctor, and you never catch up with the money guy, the finance guy. You never catch up to him. He never gets his comeuppance. Was he the one who threw the box at you? You have no idea. You never solve that mystery. And it just felt like, what was the point? What, you had all this build, and then you don't even give us that payoff. The only thing we got was the hospital staff is corrupted in the higher ends, and just you're shit out of luck, I guess. One guy tries to redeem himself, which I thought was way too fast and not earned. He ends up dying in the end. I personally didn't feel any sympathy for that character. And then I talked about this whole conclusion and ramping up. Well, in that conclusion of like, you're trying to save the day, for some reason there's like this stomach virus that's going around. It's very contagious. Patients are dying very, very quickly, and you and the hospital staff that are remaining are trying to assist these patients. Well, you're doing that, and then you get to the end of it, and it's like, whew, great, and the story ends there. You never learn even what that is. Like, what caused the disease? Was it someone's malpractice? Was it the building's fault? There's nothing. There's no conclusion to any elements, the riots, the people who had negative feelings about the hospital. It's just like, I'm just such a loss of like, what happened? I think that's just my bigger question of like, I get it, smaller studio, first game, totally fine. I understand that could be a big undertaking, but to have them do such a great job and to get to this point and then just poof, give up, it seems so confusing. Like, if you needed more time to develop, totally understand games are expensive to make. Take the time to do that. Or don't tell those stories, I guess. Like, do something different. I just, like I said, it just seemed like they gave up, and I want to know what happened. Did they just give up? Did they, like, the studio still seems strong. Like, did someone leave the team? Then it puts a bad taste in my mouth, and, like, I'm sure that's not what they wanted, because that could have been an amazing game that came out this year, but then leaving it the way it is, it, like, tarnishes the rest of it seems, or feels that way. And it's like, I'm not excited for what that studio's making now. I definitely would have been if there was a decent conclusion of this game of like, wow, Critical Rabbit, they crushed it. They hit it out of the park, but then just nothing. So, oof. Yeah, that was the one that kind of spurred this topic. Some other ones in recent years, I think we've talked about it. This is also kind of a revisit, I guess, in a way, to a past topic. I believe it was with Kevin a while ago. But we kind of talked about like purchases we regretted. And I didn't listen back to that episode. I just kind of went off the thumbnail of like, oh yeah, that was there. I think I talked about Brink. And Brink came out. It was a team-based shooter. It was out on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 era. And it came out, I think it was like class-based too. So you could be a smaller, skinnier guy who did parkour, or a bigger guy who did explosives. It's been so long. Maybe I should have looked up the trailer before. But that game was so disappointing in the fact of there was no fun factor to keep you engaged enough to keep playing match after match after match after match. Like, it's your typical online shooter, you know, your Call of Duties, your Gears of War, your whatever else is out there. Like, there has to be some kind of gameplay loop that makes it engaging enough to know that, yes, I am doing the same thing, for the most part, in the most basic things, or basic ways, doing that same thing over and over and over and over and over again. But I don't mind and I don't care because I feel rewarded, or I feel engaged, or I feel like I'm having a fun time, whether I'm playing with friends or on my own. And Brink, for some reason, did not have that. They brought new gameplay elements that they tried to implement with like the parkour aspect, where you could like slide and you could climb over different things and jump off walls, I think. Like, that was really cool, but their game modes were very, I don't know if simple is the right term, but they didn't feel fleshed out or built up enough that felt rewarding as the player. And it just kind of fell flat because in the trailers, everything seemed high-paced, seemed really cool and actiony. It seemed like you were going to get rewarded with the customization that you could even do for your players, and that just didn't seem like it was there. I'd be definitely interested to go back and see like a trailer or gameplay footage and see if it is as bad as I recall. Because I'm not remembering a lot of details. I just remember at that time it was like, oof, yeah, this did not hit where people were hoping it did and where I did personally. But granted, that's been probably at this point 10 plus years, so you know, who's going to remember all that much in terms of details? I just remember that was a big one that was kind of a letdown. In terms of more recent ones, and we talked wrestling earlier, so we're going to talk more wrestling now. We're going to talk about AEW Fight Forever. Fight Forever is a bit of a disappointment in a lot of ways, too. You know, the development team there, bringing in Ukes, which is WWE's old developer, and who else was part of the game? I don't have it in the case, I have it digitally. But it was Ukes mainly. I can't remember the other team involved with it. But they wanted to do something different. Didn't want it to be the simulation type game that the 2K games are, and the SmackDown vs. Raws before that. They wanted to do more arcadey action style, akin to the older games of the N64 era and the likes of those. And in terms of that gameplay, I think they definitely achieved it. It's easy to pick up, hard to master. It's one of those things where you just go in there, beat each other up. Anybody can win. And if you have the right people you're playing with, it could be fun. It's a fun pick-up, drop, multiplayer type game that you can go into. In terms of substance for a game, though, and I think we talked about this in the review, there's a lot to be desired. The story mode, while I appreciate the branching paths that they provided and the slight different story arcs that they have, feels flat when the in-between moments don't really, the quality doesn't seem there, I guess. Like, you're just eating meals, or you're going to the gym, or you're going sightseeing. Like, it just, in terms of quality, did not help the rest of the game or help its image, I guess. And it felt like the time that was put into that could have been put into other aspects to maybe build up the presentation that they were trying to do or the fun factor. So the story mode felt a little flat, and unfortunately that is the mode you need to play kind of consistently to get the mini games available and unlocked to you. And for it not to be fun isn't great, because then obviously you have other modes locked behind that, and it feels more like a chore instead of something you want to do or have the opportunity to do. I don't know. Speaking of the mini games, I will say mini games were a lot of fun. Looking at the initial launch of them or trailers of them, I was like, oh, it's Mario Party with the wrestlers. This is very goofy, and I don't know how I feel about it. The games, I will admit, are a lot of fun. Definitely there's ones that shine above others. Those, I will say, are a lot of fun, and that's another aspect of like pick up and play. Anyone can do it. They're all very simple enough. Some I wish maybe got a little bit more TLC, but that was fine. And then roster was fine. I understand it's small. Match types very limited. DLC. So I think they had 4 DLCs. FTR if you pre-order. Well, you get it if you pre-order, but you could buy them separate anyway. So it was FTR, Keith Lee and the Bunny, Hook and Danhausen. Maybe it was only 3. Matt Hardy was pre-order. I think that was it. So anyways, fine. Cool. You get more characters. I think for 2 characters in each pack, unless you get the season pass, it's like $8. A little steep. You get the 2 characters, and I believe you get mini games, so maybe you could kind of not alleviate it, but justify it there. To not have, as far as I know, any kind of roadmap or game plan going forward for this game. They were touting beforehand how like it's going to get more updates as it goes. It's not going to be a yearly release type thing. Like it's going to be kind of a games of service. They're going to constantly put up content and new stuff for it. To not know what they are planning to do to either improve or add to this game, it just doesn't give me hope or make me want to invest time into it, knowing that the TLC is not being put behind the game. And it's really unfortunate because it had potential to be very good. And like I said, gameplay-wise, great. There's certain things that I don't really connect with a lot, like in terms of like a small thing, the pin system. It's just a button masher, which is fine and can be fun, but not have any meter or any visual component to let you know, like, I'm about to kick out or not, sucks. And everything just being up to RNG, random chance, it's going to lose its fun for a while. Like, at least if we're going to stick with arcadey style, like WWE All-Stars had the same button mash mechanic for kickouts. But you could see your progress, you could see what you're doing, and it makes those moments more exciting of like the tension of like, oh, are they going to break out and reach that top or they're not? And to have it just all be randomness, very unfortunate. Now, I will say one plus or another plus is they did experiment, similar to the game style, but they did experiment and make the Stadium Stampede mode. The big battle royale mode where you can pick a fighter, pick a wrestler, all go in there and duke it out and try and be the last wrestler standing. Fun concept, fun for them to do that, especially with AEW doing that. And you go balls to the wall, just throw them in the football stadium. You get a wide variety of weapons, go anywhere, as far as I know, as the circle encloses, and battle it out there. Seemed like it was a separate download from the game. I personally have not played it, so I don't know how it plays in terms of connectivity and fluidity, and like, are there even enough people playing it? I'd like to try it out eventually to see how fun it is. But yeah, just knowing how the rest of the game feels, it's not super enticing to go back into it. Like I said, A lot of aspects of this game, very, very good. I like that they tried something different. It was arcadey. I like the TLC and the care that they put into the create a wrestler mode, even if it's limited. I like the plethora of effects and music that they have in there. Unlockables could have been a little deeper, but they have those. I'm sure they've added more. They had a few costumes available at launch. Hopefully they've added more since. But yeah, that one had so much potential going for it, and to have it kind of fall flat after paying a $60 value where it did not feel like that, a little disappointing. Let's talk about fighting games. Let's talk about Marvel Infinite. Talk about the most hype and excitement the FGC felt for a while. Granted, we're kind of eating as fighting game fans right now with Street Fighter 6 and, Tekken 8 and Mortal Kombat 1. Like, we're doing good. But for the time, not that we were starving, but Marvel vs. Capcom was a series that fighting game community has been wanting back for years and years and years. The hype of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 with its hits and misses to lead to Ultimate Marvel 3. We were in this big giant drought. We didn't know the fate of the other Marvel games, historic and not. You could get it on a digital front for a little while, and then it got wiped. So everything just raised in value, physical based. If you had it, you had it. If you didn't, you're kind of shit out of luck. And then we got this announcement for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and man, the excitement for that, seeing it kind of go back to its roots, be a little bit more 2v2 instead of the 3 characters, getting the Infinity Stones back to like War of the Gems, and having solid combos and gameplay got everybody excited. And then what happened? Everything looked awful. Character models didn't look great. The roster itself was very limited, and it just didn't have the amount of content that people were wanting. Gameplay-wise, game mechanic-wise, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I think gameplay, the combos you could do, the movesets that the characters had, great. Seeing people build those strings of hit, whatever crazy combos they were doing was a lot of fun. It was just, unfortunately, nobody wanted to play it because the roster was not that deep and there weren't enough interesting characters for people that they wanted to play. They tried to make it way too much MCU tie-in, which I get. You want to market those, duh. And that could have had the opportunity for a lot more newer characters that were fun, but they just didn't. I don't know if it was the amount of players that they got or the copies sold, but they didn't add anybody that really struck a nerve in terms of DLC of like, oh my god, we need to play this. And with the limited launch roster of, was it like 12, 16? It was a very small roster in comparison to older titles. It didn't have the fun factor I guess a lot of people were looking forward to. Story mode was okay. But yeah, it was very limited in what you could do for players outside of the online mode. So yeah, that was a little sad, and now there's a franchise that's kind of been dead in the water after that unfortunate miss. We've been very fortunate now. It's still not available digitally, but Arcade 1-Up has now had the opportunity to make cabinets for the old Marvel vs. Capcom games. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I believe, happened in this past year, which nobody thought would happen. It's good to see that. It's one of those franchises where, at this point, we don't know if it'll ever come back. And if it does, I just hope they learn something from Infinite and maybe not do that again. Speaking of a franchise making its return, let's talk about Battlefront 1. And no, I'm not talking about the PlayStation 2 era one. I'm talking about the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 era one. The EA Battlefronts. I will say, they definitely did learn from Battlefront 1. And Battlefront 2 made a lot of good, healthy improvements. It never struck the magic and the... I guess, galore of the original Battlefronts 1 and 2 from LucasArts, and those guys from the first time. But Battlefront 1, talk about so much potential and then just no fun, or a limited fun to be had with it. You had bigger battlefields, you had the vehicle battles, or at least the enhanced type feeling of the vehicle battles. Everything looked gorgeous graphically and showed so much promise in terms of like scale, and there was nothing that really caught everyone's attention in terms of like, yeah, this is really fun, this is the Battlefront we wanted and we missed. Once again, it's another one of those where it's been so long, I can't remember all the details, but I just remember feeling so bad about it after playing it that when they eventually did announce the second one, I was like, no, I'm going to wait. This one's not for me. And then after hearing how Battlefront 2 had improved on so much and made things more fun, still wasn't great, still wasn't perfect, or at least like in comparison, but they improved on a lot of things. They made it more fun with the heroes, and adding more heroes. The system was a little wonky for earning those guys, but they just expanded on stuff. I think they brought space battles back too, which was missing from the first one. But yeah, that was one that was just like, it was another one of like, oh my god, this is returning, we're so excited, we're so hype and looking forward to it. And then when it finally showed up and arrived, it just let a lot of us down. And I guess that could also be a factor of like, keep your standards in check, but we as gamers never do that. Oh, we're having a showcase, oh, we're having the show, oh my god, they're gonna show this, but we just inflate everything to astronomical proportions that it just can't deliver. And then I got one more. A lot of these have been more recent for sure. But I'm going to talk about Overwatch 2. Overwatch 2, you'd think this would be a whole new thing. It's going to be a whole new game. Well, if you're not in the Overwatch world, no. It was just a fancy coat of paint thrown over Overwatch 1. And, yeah, you just like, hey, here's a new thing you need to... Well, I guess you didn't have to buy it, but here's a whole new thing you need to do. You can't go play the old one, but you can have this new one that looks shiny. We'll add some maps. We'll add a game mode, and at launch we'll add 3 characters. And I'll say, because I was a big Overwatch fan, I will say it was a lot of fun to start with. It was more of the same, so I didn't play it a super long time just because it was like, well, this is exactly what Overwatch 1 was, and I had kind of died off of that with not having a group to play with, or at least people I played consistently with, and doing more of solo queues. It was just like, nah, the new characters were great. I really enjoyed the 3 that they did add. Sojourn was fantastic. Junker Queen, and then was it Kimiko was the healer at the time. They were all great, and I enjoyed playing those new characters and thought they flowed really well into the group, and it didn't feel like anybody was like overpowered or didn't fit the group. And they added so in Overwatch 2 they swapped some up. Oh boy, swatched swapped some things up. They didn't do the loot boxes anymore, which I get was a whole thing, but didn't do that, or they dropped those and went in terms of the battle pass. They're like, all right, we're gonna do a battle pass instead, because of all the trouble with the loot boxes. We're gonna do this. That's how you're gonna unlock your characters. That's how you're gonna unlock your cosmetics and stuff. And at first it was like, okay, that's fair, at least I know what I'm getting into, and I can expect or know what to expect when I get there. However, the battle passes were just nothing interesting. Nothing that really rang any kind of interest in terms of like unlocks for characters, whether it was skins or cosmetics or I don't know, emotes and stuff like that. It was mainly like sprays, or the things that they did give you were just kind of bland, and they tucked all the interesting stuff or good content away in like their store. So you pay money to get the items, and then you go from there. And it was like, wow, kind of wish we didn't ditch the loot box system, because at least there it was a random chance. I could get any of these things. I could get something really rare in like the mythical skins, or I could just get a little spray. Yeah, it is what it is. At least with that random element, you felt like you had a chance. With this, there was nothing enticing, and the progress took forever to get through battle passes. So if you wanted to unlock a character at level, I don't remember what it was, 50, you have to play a majority, like, put so many hours into it just to unlock the new character during that season. I think you could go back and unlock the other characters that you might have missed during past seasons that maybe you didn't play or didn't make it as far in, but it was just more hectic than it needed to be. And I would say the biggest disappointment, and this is what caused me to kind of drop off of Overwatch in general and just uninstall it and was like, no, I'm done, is when they first announced Overwatch 2, Blizzard said, okay, we're going to do the rehash of the multiplayer, we're going to do new servers, the new graphics, everything that they did. But we're also going to be launching single-player content. Overwatch has a lot of lore with their characters and the story we've been trying to tell with the little cooperative events in Overwatch 1. And we're going to build and expand on that and make a single-player experience where it's like player versus environment. You still play with your friends and do missions and whatnot. And I was like, oh, great. This sounds exactly like what I want. It would have been a separate purchase, as the multiplayer aspect was free to play. And we're building. And then eventually Blizzard just comes out and they're saying, nope, we're not doing single player content anymore. But here's these online events that is essentially that single player content, it seems. But yeah, we're just going to give up on that whole story thing that we said we were going to do, and all those, I guess, promises you could say that they were leading up with Overwatch 2. It's just like, oh, all right, thanks. Fuck me, I guess. Just like, it felt such like a trash move, and Blizzard themselves, not the whole company, but certain individuals in Blizzard have just been trash these past couple of years and for many years, as that studio needs a cleanse, it seems, of certain clientele. And just to have this, it's like, oh, all right, another scummy move from you guys. Cool, great. So yeah, just a bit of a disappointment there. So yeah, I don't know, just some games that came to mind while I was in this.